Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the OBSBOT Tiny 4K, a PTZ webcam which basically will probably never lose you in a frame, which is absolutely brilliant. How many of us have had those webcam conversations with friends, family, colleagues, etc., and you've been having a conversation and you're like, I can see right up your nose, or I can't see you, your head's out of the shot, that sort of thing. We've all seen it. I'm sure many of you have out there. And it's a really frustrating thing to do, especially if you're a professional, a teacher, tutor, whatever it is. You want to be actually in the shot, otherwise your students are just going to take the mickey out of you. Which is where something like the OBSBOT Tiny 4K will come in extremely handy with its dual axis gimbal. So this is a webcam, as you've probably already guessed. 4K 30Hz is the maximum it'll do. It'll also do 1080p 60, so if you do want a slightly lower resolution but faster results for maybe you're doing a dance class online, or I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe you just want that faster frame rate so you don't have that motion blur, then you can do that. Or if you want to have slightly more crispy visuals but a slightly lower refresh rate, you can set it to 4K 30. There's also other resolutions it'll do as well, but those are kind of the two main ones that people are likely to use. So anyway, before we go into the specs too far, we're going to go through, do a quick unboxing, see what we actually get, take a look at the packaging, etc. And actually the packaging is pretty exquisite. Now I must say, disclaimer, this has been sent to me free of charge for review purposes by OBSBOT themselves. They haven't asked me to say anything. They did send a review guide, which I've briefly looked through, but I have used this myself, tried it in the garden, which you're probably seeing some footage from as we speak. And it's actually, yeah, it's been very good fun. And one of the things which I always struggle with webcams is basically, where do you put it? Wherever you put it, it's problematic. If you put it on a desk too low, when it's looking up, it's not a particularly flattering angle. When you look it down, it's kind of weird. You get shine on your head, or at least I do anyway. All those kinds of things you have to take into consideration. But with the OBSBOT Tiny 4K, with its pan, tilt and zoom, you can basically have it so that you're perfectly framed all the time, regardless of what you're doing, which is absolutely awesome. Anyway, I'll stop gushing about it. Let's take a look at this thing. So as you can see from the packaging, pretty simple. 4K on there. They make a big deal about 4K 30. It is actually a pretty big deal. There's a lot of webcams on the market, things like the HP Brio, which say 4K 30, but when you actually look at the footage, it's kind of rubbish. It's not great. This will give you, in my opinion, better footage, but again, we'll see that a little bit later on. So yeah, that is a really cool thing. And actually the fact it's very, very small as well. The fact that this has got PTZ, or pan, tilt and zoom, but it's actually tiny. On the back, got some more details on there, so you can see that on the screen right now. Actually getting into the package is something which confused me, because it actually opens from the bottom of the box. I don't know. So inside the box there is yet another box. So again, really nice packaging, very solid, sturdy construction. And this has got the Apple-esque opening, so you slow opening on there. And inside we are greeted with yet another box. So this is your Video Calls with Freedom. This is all of your setup guide, instructions, etc, etc. There's actually quite a lot of information to take in here. Although if you do want the latest and greatest information, I would certainly recommend heading over to the OBSBOT website. They're actually doing firmware updates and driver updates all the time. So there are lots of reviews out there by people such as Linus Tech Tips and Lou from Unbox Therapy and many, many others. So yeah, it's our turn to shine now, so let's take a look at this. Anyway, you get your user manual, multilingual user manual, and also you get your warranty information, and also you get your gestures description. So this thing actually supports gestures as part of the AI control. Basically, the AI-powered auto-tracking and all that kind of stuff can work from gestures. So what you'll need to do, if you want to actually lock on to yourself as a target for the camera to follow, put your hand up like that, and that will either toggle on or off the tracking feature. So if you don't want to be tracked, maybe you're leaving the side of the camera, you want to go to the toilet or something, you don't want the camera following all the way around as you do the walk of shame towards the toilet. So just do that and it will stop tracking you. Do it again and then it will lock back on when you get back into the frame. Also, you can do cool things like you can do the L gesture, which isn't for loser, no, it's for zoom. So that will zoom in up to 4 times zoom, and then obviously do it again and it will zoom back out. At the moment, there isn't an option for it to kind of recognize the L gesture and zoom in to a certain point and then stop at a certain point. So it's kind of all in or all out, although you can change that in the software. So it is up to 4 times zoom altogether, but you can configure it in the software to stop at maybe 2 times or 1 times user definable. Anyway, let's get back on with this. So also in the packaging, we get this really nice package. So this is for transporting your camera around. So again, if you are doing things like courses, classes, I don't know, maybe you got some sort of yoga class, and you can quite easily pack this up with the rest of your yoga equipment, take it to the local center, get yourself set up on your webcam and start streaming, all that kind of stuff. So nice that this is actually designed so you can carry it around and keep it all nice and, well, basically protected from the elements, which is always a good thing. Inside, you've got all the bits you need. So you've actually got some USB cables up here in the top. We'll take a look at those shortly. There's the actual camera itself, and also there is a magnetic mount as well. So this is designed to fit on top of your monitor or your laptop or whatever. So you've got a large magnet on the top there. This just clips over the top of your monitor, little self-adhesive on the back there if you want to keep it in place. And the cool thing about that is you can get that set up and have that pretty much exactly where you want it. And then when you're ready to use your OBSBOT, you can just magnetize it and it's locked in place, which is absolutely awesome. So like that a lot, that's really good. Clearly, if you don't want to, you don't have to use that at all. You can literally just put it on a desk. It doesn't matter because it is going to try and track you regardless. It also has a rubber base as well. And also there's a 1/4" mount on there. So if you're into your photography, maybe you've got a spare tripod or something, which we'll be using later on actually to film some of this, you can just put a tripod in there. Standard photography tripod will screw in there, no problems at all. And probably actually a pretty decent investment. OBSBOT themselves do actually do a load of tools and accessories for this, including things like a stand, a remote control, extra charging cables, all that kind of good stuff as well. So like I said, do check out the website. There's a ton of information there. Anyway, so that is the camera. I'll take a look at the cables a second so you can see what you get. Now they do recommend, if you can, to plug this into a USB 3 port. For obvious reasons. Obviously USB 3's got better power delivery, etc, etc. You can, if you want to, use it in a USB 2 port, but you will need to use an additional cable to give it a little bit more juice. Now your mileage may vary. You may find that your motherboard has a lot of power coming out the USB 2 ports, in which case if it works fine, hey, it's fine, leave it as it is. But they do include an additional cable, so there's a USB type A to their kind of custom jack, which is like a little pin, so that will deliver up to about 1 amp of power into the camera itself. The main connectivity is going to be via USB type C. They do include in the packaging, there is a USB to USB type C cable, very easy to get hold of. If you've got a slightly older machine that doesn't have a spare USB type C port, don't worry, they've got you covered. There's a USB type C to type A adapter, so you can just push that onto the end and use that. I found actually just using pretty much any generic USB type C to type A cable works absolutely fine. And in fact, the one that I'll be using later is one that I've got plugged into my computer back there, which is like a 5-meter one, which I picked up off Amazon very cheaply. So if you do find you want your camera a little bit further away from you because you're not maybe using it on a laptop screen or something, then you can kind of position it other places as long as you can get power to it. But the 5-meter cable seems to be about the most you can do. So let's take a closer look at the actual camera itself. So as you can see, it is tiny. It is a really small thing. As you see against my hand there, it is, yeah, it's very small. So you've got the OBSBOT logo on the front, which actually is quite handy because this is a gimbal with an axis. Then that's going to give you a good idea of actually where the central point is. Although if you look at the back where you've got your power input and your USB type C, that again, if you keep that straight out the back, then you'll know that you've got 160 degrees of motion to play with. So 160 degrees field of view either way. The camera itself has got 86 degrees field of view. So you can get somewhere in the region of about 360 degrees of motion with that 160 there, plus the 2 lots of 86. Yeah, it's complicated, but essentially it works. The reason why it does work as well actually is because it does use a very good sensor. So they've actually used a Sony sensor in here, which is, I'm not sure the exact size of it, I'll put that on the screen below. That always confuses me with the sizes. I'm so used to full frame and micro four thirds and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to kind of laptops, smartphones and webcams, yeah, it confuses the hell out of me. But anyway, it has actually got a f2.2 aperture on there, so should be quite good even in low light, which we'll be testing out later on. I've tried this actually the complete opposite. With HDR on in the garden, you've probably seen this a little bit earlier, with the sun being kind of to the side, but me being backlit on, so you can see what the actual HDR works like. And it does seem to work very well. You could still see things like the blue sky, even with sunlight. I was giving it some particularly challenging things to do outside in the garden, moving around different angles, and it actually did very well. I was very surprised. Most webcams would be completely blown out. Obviously, really is a webcam. It's not designed for be used for outdoor shooting, but there's no reason why you shouldn't. The microphones will suffer because the dual microphones, there's one each side, Even though they're really good and they sound great, the stereo is going to pick up wind noise terribly unless you put some sort of muff on the front of each one. That will reduce it. And then you could quite easily use this outdoors if you want to. So maybe if you've got a YouTube channel and you're maybe doing work things outside in the garden, maybe chopping up wood or carving things out of wood, those kind of things, outdoorsy type activities, this will keep you tracked. So you don't have to worry about having actually someone there filming you, moving your camera around, or you stopping every couple of seconds to move and to change the shot. This thing will just keep up with you and it will track you as much as you want. So that is a really, really cool feature. These, I think, are designed primarily for YouTube creators, essentially, TikTok, all that kind of stuff, but also for education, tutors, online learning. That's been a massive thing over the last couple of years because of what's been going on in the world. So to actually have a webcam which you don't have to worry about, you can just set it and forget it pretty much, is an absolutely great thing. When it comes to the tracking as well, there's three kind of defined modes. So there's the standard mode, which is just a regular mode, so it just follows you around at a regular pace. There's also motion mode as well. So what motion mode does is increases the field of view slightly, but it also ups the speed of the motors inside the gimbal, of which you can never hear, by the way, just in case you're wondering. So in motion mode, if you're doing things like online course, maybe aerobics, exercise videos, that sort of stuff, or just anything fast moving, put it into motion mode and it will track you much quicker. Standard mode is a little bit slower. And also there is a headroom mode as well. So depending on what you're doing, you may find that sometimes if you're moving around, your head may get towards the top of a shot. But if you want to address the kind of rule of thirds and you want a little bit of room between your head and the top of the shot, put it in headroom mode and it will give you well, headroom basically. So now, I think I've gone enough on it. Let's take a look now at the software and you can see how the software actually works. Okay, so this is the recording software. Now I've actually got this set up in OBS, so I'm recording in OBS. I'm using the audio from the camera as well, so I might actually transfer that over the top. We'll see how it is, but this is your basic kind of control box. You can, of course, if you want to, add the camera into OBS, but I can't actually record my desktop and what is going on at the same time, so that'll come a little bit later, but I just wanted to show you the software. So you've got options in there. You can connect up to 3 cameras. So there's option for 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to put 3 of these together, you can swap between them, use them in various control modes. You've got your AI tracking, so you can choose that. So tap to lock and unlock, or you can use the gestures should you wish to. You've also got your zoom slider, which goes between 0 and 4%, or 4 times rather. So you can choose that. You've also got manual gimbal options there, so you can choose up, down, left, right if you want to. So if you're using this as some sort of control suite for somebody else that you're recording, then you can do. You've also got your device status, so you can choose to set it to go to sleep, reset your gimbals, and you've got preset positions for the camera, so you can set up 3 default positions. So if you wanted to maybe set up where you've got 3 people talking and you want it to switch between the 3 people, you can choose 3 different settings and do like camera 1, camera 2, camera 3 if you wanted to in your settings. On the side you've got your software version, firmware version, your device auto sleep, so it's not actually detecting any movement. Within 10 minutes it'll shut down. You can choose that to 30 seconds, 2 minutes, or 10 minutes. Gesture control locks target, so you can turn that on or off. Gesture control for zoom, you can choose that on or off. And you've also got your zoom factor, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, so you can choose what the factor is for the gesture control zoom, all the way up to 4. So set that as 4, we'll leave that for later. Tracking modes, you've got the three modes there: headroom mode, standard mode, and motion mode. Camera settings, so you've got extra settings there, so you can turn on HDR. I've actually got it disabled at the moment because it doesn't really seem to need it in our lighting. You've also got autofocus. You can choose for global or face, or turn it off altogether and set manual focus. Exposure, this is something they've added new, so you can do auto, or you can choose your own exposure and expose for your face or expose for the background. And you've also got exposure compensation if you wish to up it, anti-flicker on off, and also depending if you're in a particular region, so 60 Hz for the Americans and 50 Hz for UK and Europe and things like that. Also your white balance, so you can manually set a white balance, and this helps with the camera pulsing in certain environments. And also you've got things like your image contrast, saturation, sharpness, and your hue, so you can change all those settings there, which is really good. This is a relatively new thing which has been added into the latest software version, so you can take advantage of all those things, which was actually one of the complaints previously, where there just wasn't enough options for focusing and also for compensation for exposure, etc, etc. Anyway, so that is that. Let's get back to checking out what the camera actually looks like. Okay, so this is a audio and visual test of the OBSBOT Tiny 4K. Hopefully it's looking pretty crispy. This is recording in OBS, so there is going to be some slight degradation in the image quality rather than actually if you're doing it raw through some sort of application. It is the nature of the beast. And also you've got YouTube's compression algorithms working on it as well. So yeah, potentially you could get it a little bit better. I'm still learning the tricks of the trade on how to get the best possible quality out of all my cameras, to be honest with you, but this hopefully gives you an idea of what it's actually like. So let's start off with some very basic things. So obviously you've got the gesture control. So currently at the moment the camera is locked onto me and is in the standard mode, so it's just kind of smoothly panning. So if I move around a little bit it will follow me. So if you want to lock off the camera so it doesn't move at all, so you just put your hand up like this with the 5-finger salute, and then the camera will flash the blue light 3 times to say that it's registered the command, and now the camera tripod is locked off. So now if I move around then it's basically not going to follow me at all and it will stay exactly where it is, keeping the framing as it is now. So if you want to have it to actually track the individual on the camera, then hold it in your hand like that. Again, it will flash on the screen a couple of times, little LEDs on there, which is actually quite easy to see. So now it's in green mode, 3 LEDs, and now if I move around then the camera is going to try and pan and track me. Now it's in standard mode, so it is going to track around quite slowly. I'm actually on a wheelie chair now, which is probably not the best way of doing it, so we'll change that very shortly, but yeah, it should be tracking very, very nicely. Now also the other thing you can do is you can do the zoom gesture. Now I've actually set it so the zoom gesture is only 2 times zoom, because 4 times zoom basically crops into kind of my face just here, and it's almost impossible to zoom back out again because I can't physically get my hand and my head in the same shot. So just a 2 times zoom on this one. So in order to zoom in, just do that. And again, the camera will do its thing and hopefully, yeah, we're zoomed in. And if you want to zoom back out again, just do the same thing again and it will slowly zoom back out, which, yeah, that is very, very cool. That impresses me. I like that a lot. It's very handy. Of course, if you're doing things maybe with in a classroom, doing a whiteboard thing, and you want to zoom in on certain things, then that is absolutely great. So now I'm going to change it into a different mode. I'm going to go into motion mode and we'll try and do some quicker movements so you'll see how quickly the PTZ actually works. So now the gimbal is going to speed up a little bit more. This is designed for, again, faster moving stuff if you're maybe doing dancing, full body stuff, just moving around in general. So now you'll probably notice that the gimbal is going to speed up a bit. So if I pick up my microphone and move up, you see the pan is quite a bit quicker. So if you're moving around, then it's going to try and keep you in the frame, and coming right the way down here, all the way down, moving back up. This is good exercise. So yeah, you get the general idea. So that is the motion mode. So also as well, you've got the headroom mode as well. So if we go into that one, so we're going to motion mode, changes to headroom mode. So now what this is going to do is going to try and always give you a little bit of a gap above your head. So depending on what you're doing, it's going to try and keep you more centrally framed, so your face likely is going to be more centralized. So if you move up a little bit, give it a little time, and it should still have a reasonable gap above my head, which it appears to have, and it still does track you quite quickly. So yeah, it's actually very cool. I like this a lot. Other features, obviously you can move it around manually. There is actually another part that I haven't shown you, which is actually quite difficult to show you, but on the camera itself, if you twist the lens downward, it actually goes into kind of privacy mode, so it shuts the device off, and it's an electrical thing, so it shuts it off completely, so you lose microphone and also visuals, which is very handy. Or you can set it in the software to go into auto mode after a pre-selected amount of time. So yeah, hopefully this is pretty cool. I'm interested to see what the autofocus is like, because autofocus is something, especially in this particular setup, because we've got all these contrasting colours. My other camera, which uses phase detect auto defocus, I think, or is it depth and defocus, one of the two, it's not very good at focusing at the best of times. So let's try it with something in front of the camera. So put up the OBSBOT box, the carry box. It should be focused on that, and then we'll take it away and hopefully it should snap back to my face because it is in autofocus face mode. If you set it to global, it basically anything in front of the camera, it will focus on straight away regardless if it's you or a physical object. So if you're filming stuff where you're not actually in the shot, but things are, maybe you're doing work on maybe a motherboard, a case, those kinds of things, working on a bike or doing some, I don't know, some other task which doesn't involve your face being in the frame, you can set it to autofocus, so it'll just focus on what is actually in front of it, which is pretty good. And quickly snap that in again and take it away. And I think the autofocus is one of the key features. over the previous OBSBOT, which didn't have the specific autofocus. There was another feature or two in there as well, but now this is a much more rounded product with autofocus is a really big thing, and they're adding more features all the time, such as auto HDR, the exposure compensations, all those kinds of things, so you can take slightly more granular control. So if you've got a specific setup in mind, you can dial in the settings exactly for your camera to prevent things like overexposure, underexposure, focusing, all that kind of good stuff. Anyway, hopefully this video has been useful too. Thanks very much to OBSBOT for sending this over to us for review purposes. I actually really like it. It's a very cool little gadget. Price-wise, I'm not sure if we've mentioned it already in the video because I've actually recorded this because the audio I couldn't quite get as crisp as I liked. But the price at the moment, somewhere around the £200 mark, so do shop around. Look at the links in the video description, you'll see when there's deals on. I am going to speak back to OBSBOT themselves and see if there's anything they can do for Mike's Unboxing viewers, see if we can get some sort of discount code. If there is one, that's going to be in the comment section below pinned, and also it should be in the video description if there is one. If not, I think it's actually a pretty decent value for money considering what it is you get. Pan, tilt and zoom, 4K up to 30 Hertz and also 1080p up to 60, so it's going to fit most people. And if you just basically want a decent reliable webcam which is going to track you pretty much no matter what, I think it's definitely worth a look. So anyway, that's going to wrap this video up. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and the notification bell, and you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.